Hello, Intriguers. My name is LeBray, and welcome to Transparency Tuesday. So, Tuesdays are a day that I dedicate to sharing my testimony in full humility and full transparency. This channel was brought about because God instructed me to begin to start sharing my testimony publicly. And it was a struggle, but here I am. I've been as consistent as I can be, especially as someone who don't like to be in front of the camera. I like to stay low key in the background, but you never know with God. So here I am. If you're tired of hearing about generational curses, and you are tired of hearing about generational stuff on this channel, then I just ask you to politely keep scrolling, to politely exit stage left, to politely understand that this may very well not be the channel for you. And I won't feel offended. But those that it is for, I'm going to break it down to you. So, as I said before, God called me to break generational curses. Starting with incest, then it was generational curses with everything else. We can talk about forgiveness. Why is it important to forgive people? It's very important to forgive people on this journey, because if you don't, you are going to send yourself to an early grave. You will drive yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually insane if you do not. I used to be the type of person that held grudges against people. Yeah. I was one that held grudges. I was one who was very vindictive. And I was one who was very vengeful. I felt like no one could handle a situation better than I could. So when someone wronged me, it was me taking matters into my own hands, and getting some type of resolve. However, most times when I took the matters into my own hands and tried to get some type of resolve, most of the time, I'm not going to say always, but most of the time I ended up in jail. I ended up in juvenile. It always ended up, I always ended up most of the time catching the charge. So, or it'll backfire on me. So, coming to God, God showed me that it's not up to me to get revenge. If anybody did anything to me that wasn't appropriate and wasn't justified, He will be the one to avenge the situation. And Lord knows there was many a times where I wanted to, if not avenge myself, avenge my children. So there was one time where along the journey, when I had first came to God in 2016, one of my daughters, she came to her therapist, and in the midst of the journey and her coming to her therapist, she ended up disclosing something that happened to her that was very traumatic. So the therapist ended up reaching out to me and letting me know what was said in therapy. Y'all have to excuse me. I could use some rest. but I'm here recording and being obedient. Yeah, my daughter, her therapist, reached out to me to let me know that my daughter had disclosed a situation that happened to her. And the situation that she had disclosed to her was, once upon a time, when she was in the care of her aunt, which is my little sister on my mom's side of the family, she had been raped by my sister's boyfriend, not once but twice. And he raped her. He raped her vaginally. He sodomized her, and she said he made him perform. He made her perform oral on him. Now, I found out about this a little over a year after we had been on our journey of healing. So I wasn't fully a woman of God like I am now. It was still in me. So when I found out about it, I ended up going. First, let me say, when I found out about it, it broke my heart to pieces to find this out. But I went to my mother, and I had let my mom know what was told to me by my daughter, her first grandchild. And the first thing that my mom had said was, "Oh, well, dang," but she used the cuss word. "I wonder what she gonna say about my boyfriend." And I was like, I know this woman ain't sitting up here worried about what my daughter is going to say about her boyfriend when I just told her that my little sister's boyfriend raped my daughter, your grandchild. I can laugh now, but back then, I wasn't as emotional intelligent as I am now. And I was a certified crash out back then. So, told my mom what happened. And she ended up, that was her response. So I was like, telling my mom, like, hey, I want to tell my sister about this because, it's my little sister. Why wouldn't I want to tell my sister what's going on? I wanted to give her the heads up. I wanted to go to my sister to find out if, not so much as if my daughter was telling me if it was true or false. It was so much as I want my sister to know what's going on, and I want to hear her side of the story. That was the reason behind me going to my sister and telling her. So I followed my mom over there, or my mom got there before I did. My mom was already headed over there, and I had my mom stop by my house on her way before, because you get to my house before you get to my sister's house. But we lived less than 5 minutes from each other. So we get there. My nieces is there. I tell my nieces to go upstairs because I wanted to talk to my sister about something, and I really didn't want my nieces to hear. And I sit down. I'm cordial. I'm level-headed. I'm going into this the most humblest I have ever been with my little sister and my mother in a situation, with anybody in a situation like this. So I go to my sister, I tell my sister, I say, hey, look, you know, I ended up going to my sister saying, my daughter ended up letting her therapist know that your boyfriend, so and so, ended up raping her, and you knew about it. And I'm just coming over here to let you know what's going on. And that kind of was like the tone that I had with her. It wasn't, I didn't yell. It wasn't nothing like that. It was, this is my little sister. I love my little sister. I'm hoping, like deep down inside, I'm hoping that there is an explanation for what my daughter is telling me. But when I bring it to my sister's attention, she went all the way left. Her response was, that's why, like, her response to the situation, now that I look back on it, was she was guilty at the end of the day. And then second of all, her response, if she wasn't my little sister, would have warranted a consequence for her response behind the situation. And I'm not talking about warranted a consequence legally. I'm talking about warranted a consequence from Bray. So for those who don't know me, I go by LeBray now. LeBray is the new creation that God has created in him. When God healed me and delivered me and saved me from the world, I became Bray. I became LeBray. That's who I had. LeBray is the woman of God versus Bray. Bray is that savage I be telling y'all about. It's the person that I was when I was living a life that didn't align with who God wanted me to be. It was the person that I was when God didn't exist. Because before I came to God, I was an atheist. God wasn't real in my world. God was non-existent. I was a God. You was a God. Everybody was a God. That was what my belief was prior to coming to God. And a little bit, it was my belief system prior to coming to God. So with me living like that, I had no morals. I had morals, but they weren't in alignment with the morals of God. They wasn't in alignment with the principles of God. So when my sister came at me like she did, it was, she lucky she's my sister. But then at the same time, as I said before, I was the one to hold a grudge. So the things that she was saying was off the wall. The stuff, oh, that's why I don't F with you and your kids. You and your kids always trying to start some mess, but she used the S word. I don't cuss no more, so I ain't gonna say it. That's just how much God has done in me. I don't cuss no more, although I used to cuss like a sailor. But she was this, that, and the other, and just a bunch of stuff. And when I say that she was going there, she was taking it there. She was loud. She was doing the most. And my mom just sitting there, just ain't said nothing. So the moment where I had enough and I raised my voice, my mom say something to me. And I'm like, what type of stuff is this? At that moment, I already knew what it was. I told my sister how I felt about the situation. I told my sister how I felt about her, and that and I got up and I left. That was the end of my relationship with my little sister in that moment. After that, it was reported to the necessary authorities and everything else. But because my daughter waited so long to disclose the information, it wasn't really too much of anything that was done as far as the prosecution standpoint of it. So they ended up letting it go, and they might have let it go because I did tell too much information. Like, we had a family group. I went in the family group and I addressed it with the family. Since my mama and my sister want to act like this, it's a family group. Let me just go ahead and put it out there amongst the family members. When I say my family showed their true colors when I did that, they showed their true colors. I had a cousin who said, now all of these was my little cousins, but they was grown. All my little cousins, well, one of them, she said, if it ain't going on in your household, what does it matter? Now, this is the same little cousin who is okay with incest. She don't mind having sex with her siblings. She don't mind having sex with family members. She don't mind having sex with anybody that has the same blood running through that she shares the same DNA with. She has no problem with that. So, of course, okay, that's it. Of course she'll say that. So then I had my other two cousins, and they was on there in the family group, and they was just laughing and joking about it. Like, it was fun and games. So I was like, okay, like, I'm just sitting back, just reading all these messages, reading the responses. I ain't responding to nobody, but sorry about that. That was my grandson, and I didn't want him on camera. So yeah, it was a whole mess. And before you know it, like, none of the elders in the group spoke up. None of the matriarchs in the family spoke up. None of my cousins or aunties or uncles who are older than me, nobody spoke up. Next thing I know, my great auntie shut down the family group. Like, she shut it down. There was no more family group after that. So that's when I knew that it was over. When it came to my family being my family, it was in that moment when my family became my relatives. And my little sister, back to that, it was, so nothing happened to her and her boyfriend when all that was said and done. So me being vindictive, and me holding on to anger, and me holding grudges and being vengeful, I just sat back and plotted, since nobody is too concerned about the safety and well-being of my daughter, and from a legal standpoint, nothing is done. What can I do? Was the question. And when I was in the world, before coming to God, I had a temper on me. I had a spirit of rage. I had the spirit of wrath on me before coming to God. And I had the spirit of offense on me. That was terrible. It was, it was most people were scared of me, and I didn't like that. I mean, it was cool back then, but now that I'm a child of God, and to know that that's the type of fear that I had instilled in people, I don't feel good about that. I don't, because nobody should have feared me. People, we shouldn't, humans, we're not supposed to fear nobody but God. But that was an unhealthy fear, is what it was. And my family knew that if I got mad, what it would result in, for the person that I was mad at. So I had planned. So with my sister, with all that had went down, there was these thoughts that ran through my mind. And the thoughts were, that's my little sister and I love her. But if she knew that this happened to my daughter and she covered it up, she gonna pay for that. And I felt that way because my daughter is her niece, her first niece, first nephew. I mean, first, just her first, because I'm my mom's oldest child. I'm not the oldest, but I'm the first out of all my mama kids to have a child. So for her to allow that to happen to my daughter and her not protect her and her try to cover it up and her not even tell me about it, and I find out through my daughter, oh yeah, it's on and popping. So I just sat back and I just contemplated. That's all I kept doing, contemplating. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? So for her, it was, I was going to hurt her, but I wasn't going to kill her. I wanted her and I wanted her boyfriend to feel the same type of pain that I was feeling. I wanted them to feel the same type of pain my daughter was feeling. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? So what I was going to do is, at the time, I was going to